it's time now to talk about how big data is going to come to you. Is it going to come to you via satellite? Is it going to come to you via fiber? Because there is a face-off that is happening, ladies and gentlemen, in India. Even as Elon Musk's Starlink satellite internet service is looking to enter the Indian market, Mukesh Ambani and the Reliance Group's JioFiber and JioAirFiber are revving things up. And not just that, they're not just revving things up, they're also asking for funds, for USO funds to set up the infrastructure needed for this satellite internet. What does it mean? Are they posing a challenge through the back door by asking for these USO funds, posing a challenge to Elon Musk's Starlink's entry? We have the founder of MediaNama, Mr. Nikhil Pahwa, now joining us live on the broadcast to help put things into perspective. Nikhil, thank you so much for taking time out to be with us over here. Talk to us about the latest. We're all excited about JioFiber, JioAirFiber, Starlink, but here the coveted lady seems to be the Indian market.
The Indian market is huge. It's the second largest internet market in the world. Indians are consuming something like 200 GB of data per user per year, and we're paying around 10 paisa per GB, which are amongst the lowest internet rates in the world. So, it's the hottest internet market for everyone who can't get into China. But it's also just from an internet infrastructure perspective, it's a hot market, but I can't say it's the hottest market from internet infrastructure perspective, because if you go back to 2008, I think there were some South American telecom operators that were interested. There were many European operators. There was a Russian operator, Sistema, that had entered the Indian market. So, in fact, what I tend to see is that while there is a move to launch more and more ways of accessing the internet, because the internet market is so hot and there's so many users, I think the competition for internet access is actually lower than what we have seen in the past. Remember, at one point in time, India had some 12 telecom operators running. Now we have largely 3 that dominate. So it's interesting, but amongst the latest news is also that you've got JioSpaceFiber that is being planned. Airtel's got OneWeb. From what we can see from the submissions to TRAIs, to telecom regulators, consultation on auction for space for satellite spectrum, it looks like Amazon is also interested. They've made a submission in their own name for the first time, so that's a surprise. We're going to see some interesting moves taking place here.
Right, I want to focus on that USO, or Universal Service Obligation Fund, USO funds that Jio is now asking for. Reliance is asking for around 70.
I can't hear you clearly, KK.
Right, Nikhil, can you hear me now? 1, 2, 3. Right, I don't think you can hear me, can you? All right, we will try to reconnect with Nikhil and see if he can hear us. Nikhil, if you can hear us, the question I want to ask you is that the Jio Reliance is asking for 75,000 crore rupees worth of USO funds, which is Universal Service Obligation Funds, the funds that will be used for capex and creating this infrastructure for this kind of an internet service to come through. Your thoughts on that?
So, look, the USO fund is something that you and I have paid for, right? We are internet consumers. Every time we pay our mobile bill, we contribute to the USO fund so that people who don't have connectivity should be able to get it. And so, in that sense, there is a Bharat net optical fiber rollout that has taken place across the country with the help of the USO fund. The only thing is that only half of that USO fund, or less than half of that USO fund, has been utilized. Like, it's a 140,000 crores of rupees in the USO fund, and only 74 odd thousand has been utilized. So there is money available. What we need to do is utilize that to improve internet access. Frankly, for those players, and I don't think it should be given to a particular private player, but we should look at underserved areas, especially in the hills in India, where internet access is difficult, it's complex. But also, let's not forget that one of India's biggest weaknesses when it comes to internet access is that our wired internet rollout is very poor. we have to rely continuously on spectrum auctions and spectrum being given to telecom operators uh, to get this to work. So I think if I have to say where should that fund be utilized, I would say that we need to give more SOPs to wired internet users, because more usage is actually cheaper on wired than it is on wireless. And
Okay.
if you really want to make the internet accessible to the poor, we need to roll out wired internet access wherever possible. We need to encourage
Fair enough.
community internet networks, Wi-Fi mesh networks. I don't think Jio should be getting this money. I don't
Fair.
think Airtel should be getting this
Okay,
money.
fair enough. But the fight here at this stage seems to be in space. Starlink, Elon Musk versus Mukesh Ambani, as far as bringing space internet into India, and who gets to get a lion's share of that game.
I would be very wary of letting Elon Musk into this market. Because look, if you look at what he's done in Ukraine, where he pulled internet access at one point in time, that put lives in danger. At least that's what's been alleged. I would be very conscious of letting such an
Okay, but he's the
unreliable
man
player
who's
into
getting
the
trolled
market.
now. Who's getting trolled now for saying that he wants to provide internet to Gaza, to the Palestinians in
Yeah, so
Gaza.
look, if you're playing in politics with internet access, then I think India is not the country for you. If you're playing politics on the internet, like we saw with Chinese apps that were becoming a national security risk, I don't think India is the country for them. We need to be very careful about who gets in, but I want to just make it clear, it's important for us to let more players in. Because look at it, right? Today, Airtel dominates mobile and wireline. Jio dominates, is the largest player on mobile. It is the probably amongst the larger players on wireline. Now, even in satellite, you're going to get the same players in. I think there's a market concentration in terms of internet access that's taking place. And these are the same players that are basically trying to abuse their monopoly power when it comes to net neutrality. So, maybe we need a little more competition in the space, because what happens with players that become dominant is they start doing rent seeking, which is what Airtel and Jio, to my mind, seem to be doing. And when they're asking for network usage fees from internet companies, and which will come down and make internet users more expensive for users, we need to basically let new players in. Who those new players are, I really can't say, but I wouldn't be comfortable with Elon Musk. Maybe an Amazon will be a more responsible player in the space. Maybe at one point in time, Google had hotspots in railway stations if they want to get into it. But I would say that uh, you, satellite and even on wireline, you don't want just two players owning the space. That's not a good situation for the Indian market.
But it's an inevitability that we are probably dealing with over here. Musk, at one stage or the other, we know the kind of conversations that he's already had with the Indian government officials. He's not backing off as far as making his India entry is concerned. The face-off is inevitable. But my question here is that at the end of the day, the conversation, I think, eventually has to be about which will bring down internet costs for the users over here. All of this space internet, wired internet, wireless internet, because Jio's argument of putting those 75,000 odd crore rupees into use is essentially means that that will result in the average cost per user coming down, along with more connectivity and penetration.
So the Alliance for Affordable Internet came out with a report a couple of years ago, which gave a more holistic picture of internet access. One important aspect of that is the device cost. In fact, that's why we have many shared devices in the country, because devices are still expensive. When you're charging 10 rupees per GB for internet usage, really internet costs in this country are not expensive at all. It's amongst the cheapest in the world. If they go lower, sure, that will be useful. But what really helps is actually improving access. There are many parts of this country, especially in hilly areas, if you go on the highways, in many parts of the highway where internet access is not available at all. So I would say the idea is not to bring down costs any further. The idea is to basically bring down the overall cost. That is, the handset costs need to come down substantially. And I think as a country we're doing very well there, because we started rolling out manufacturing in India.
Okay.
There is also, Rajiv Chandrasekhar talks frequently about India becoming a semiconductor hub. And imports are expensive. Even with the manufacturing facilities, those handsets are normally just assembled in India. So as we start moving up the value chain in manufacturing, device cost will go lower. And that's what will improve internet access and cost of internet access, because data cost is now no longer a problem. We used to pay 250 rupees a GB back in 2015 and 14 and 15. It's after Jio came in that it's now 10 rupees a GB. That's affordable for people. I don't think that's a problem.
Okay, so of course, the point always is that we get 5G. What is the quality of 5G that we're going to get? We have 4G. What is the quality of 4G that we have? And then eventually 6G as well. Let's improve the qualities of the 4Gs and the 5Gs and 6Gs that we have. That's where the focus needs to be. I'm going to thank Mr. Nikhil Pahwa at the stage and let him go. Thank you so much, Nikhil. Pleasure talking to you as always, and hope to keep having you here on Business Plus again.